Are you all set, or do you need?
Oh, I've been ready for 5 minutes.
All right, perfect. Ready? Okay, we're gonna get started. Can you stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you please make sure that your cell phones are turned off or on silent? Okay, we're gonna, where's our guidance department? We're gonna move right down to the presentation. Mrs. Herbst, I think that
That's just me.
you're the,
Yeah.
she just informed me in the hall that it's only like, what, 50 to 60 minutes? Okay.
So there's two parts to this tonight. I want to go over briefly, very briefly, the goals of our guidance plan, and there's only 5 goals in our guidance plan. And then I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the staff, because the staff this year has changed quite a bit. Actually, the staff has changed quite a bit in the last few years, especially this year we have got additional people. And anytime the principals want to pipe in, they can. But our guidance plan basically lists 5 things that the district, well, those are the people on it, but we'll get into that. Lists 5 goals that we have. And I think you all have a copy in your folder of it. Those are the district goals. I should get my glasses on to go over this. So the first goal we have is to review each student's educational progress, career plans, future plans annually, provide advisory and individual group assistance to help students develop and implement post-secondary education and career plans. This is, by the way, UPK through grade 12. Second goal is to provide assistance to enable students to benefit from the curriculum. Third, provide assistance for students who exhibit attendance, academic, and or behavior adjustment problems. And fourth goal is to educate students concerning personal safety. And the 5th goal is to encourage parental involvement in the educational process. And basically, the rest of the career plan, or the guidance document, is to go over what we do in each one of those, each one of those goals, and who's responsible, who helps with that. Mr. Van Orman and I were talking about this today, and we were talking about, it's more or less putting what we already do into the plan. Where does it fit? Where does it, where do we need help? What other supports do we need? We sit down, the entire counseling team, twice a year, and we come up with this. We kind of revamp it and redo it. It is, the guidance department has to present that to the district, and then it goes on our website. Any questions about the actual plan? Because I wanted to get into the actual what people do for the district. What was I supposed to do in that to get this? Oh, me. Yes, okay. This is quite a list of people that we have working for the district in the counseling department. Sharon Rosati is our district social worker. Melissa Lochner is the Wayne Behavioral. We have a satellite site here. She works 2 days a week, 1 week, and then 3 days a week another week. So she's here sporadically. Justine Fackenbush is our community schools person that works mostly with Mrs. DeVinny. Casey Evans is new to the district for the last few years. She is the elementary school counselor, along with Ashley Fairchild. She's also the school psychologist down there. Those two work really well together. Sam Stagels and Amy Stanzada are our people from Peaceful Schools. They do counseling. They do mostly group work, restorative work. We'll get into exactly what they do, but they're new this year. What am I missing? Kathy Armstrong, of course, she's been at the district for many years. She's our middle school counselor. Kristen Arnone's a psych at middle school and high school with Shayla, who's our high school counselor. Peyton Klingerman is our psych intern, and Amber Lasco and Madison Bowman are with the counseling department, they're interns. So all of these slides have a lot of words on them, and every single one of our people that work in the counseling department overlap. So you're gonna see on these slides a lot of language about crisis counseling, working with small groups, working with individuals. They all do that. They all provide that kind of counseling. They all provide administrative help to our administrators. But I wanted to get into my version of what they all do individually. So Sharon has been with us many years.
Many years.
Many years. And she works 4 days a week with the district. She's a BOCES employee. We get quite a good bang for her buck there. She's the school social worker. And the way I view social workers, even though she's got a lot of things on there, is really the case management between the school and the home. Today, for instance, she did a home visit with Matt Strauss. They went to a home today and they were there, they worked with the parents. She's usually that person that is the liaison between the school and the home. She does IEP counseling for all 3 buildings actually. She does our Access VR, which is a vocational program that we do outside when students with disabilities become juniors and seniors. We sometimes use that organization. They come in, she's in charge of that. She's also a member of TIG, and she does YAP. The last thing on there was our the Auburn Prison YAP program. She does that. Melissa Lochner, as I said before, does 5 days a week, or 5 days every 2 weeks. She is that Wayne Behavioral satellite site that we're here. A lot of times, she's the person that is the communicator with the psychiatrist. So some of our students are on some pretty heavy-duty medication, and she's the one that is in constant contact with the psychiatrist. At times it is a requirement for those students on certain medications that they meet with her. She meets with kids usually once a month though. She doesn't, so she might have over 90 kids on her caseload. So she's pretty busy. I look at Melissa as that case manager for psychiatric help. And she does all of that, plus actually works with Mrs. Rosati on that community partnership with outside organizations. Next. Oops. Next we have our counselors, and we're lucky to have Casey at the elementary school. When I was first here, we had 2, middle school and high school. It's nice to have Casey at the elementary. So we have Casey, who does elementary K-5, Kathy, who's at 6 through 8, and Shayla Pasker is our high school counselor. When I look at counselors, and they're not guidance counselors anymore, they're just called counselors, I look at that teacher relationship mostly. They're the people that are in the district. They may know, they usually do know most students in the building. They're that tier 1, tier 2 intervention, but they're the communication between the school, the family, and the teacher. They run a lot of teacher meetings. They do a lot of short-term counseling goals with teachers. They also do IEP goals. I'm not saying they don't, but all 3 of them really work on team grouping, team problem solving at each grade level. They also do career academic plans. This is all the way from kindergarten all the way up to their senior year. So it's not just doing scheduling. They do a lot of career planning, attendance reviews, and they're the people that are our principal's right-hand people to help them. Correct? Our principals. Dennis? Okay. And our psychologists, we have 2, Ashley Fairchild and Kristen Arnone, and this is the slide that I can use, that I can speak mostly about, because they pretty much work for the special education department. They do all our educational evaluations. run our BIP team meetings, which is behavior plans. And they provide tier 3 interventions, tier 2 as well. Most of the staff do tier 3 interventions as well. They run CSC meetings at times. They are, as you see on Kristen's OPWDD services, for services outside of school for students with disabilities when they graduate. If they stay to their 21 or 22, that's what they do. So our psychologists do a lot of things, but mostly they do work for the special education office. You're going to see DASA coordinators on there too. They do that as well. And Caitlin works with them as well, mostly at the high school. She is our second for the year. And now Peaceful Schools and Amy and Sam. So they do a lot of restorative stuff. They do restorative practices. They do group work. They'll have a group of 5, 6 kids for a lunch group. And they do crisis counseling somewhat. So Dennis uses Sam in the elementary building to work with certain students in certain classrooms to provide that support. Dennis, do you have anything else to say about what they do?
Sam in the elementary building, Sam is she's used like in the morning. She supports kids for check in, check out, or small lunch bunches throughout the day. But she'll also be visible right in the cafeteria, during arrival and during lunches to work with kids. She doesn't do any individual counsel. She works with the small groups and certain things like that. The only individual pieces is really check in, check out.
Right.
She's great. She's great
Yes.
at that piece.
And you never know at the elementary building the mood that kids are going to walk in as they come in the door. And sometimes it's nice to have a familiar face right there, and she can greet them. She does a lot of, and Amy does the same thing at the high school and middle school. She's got groups at 6th, 7th, and 8th that she works with. And then Justine, she does the after-school program for Kyler right now, and she does the food link. Most staff know who she is because she does a lot of things for the district with the community, and she works pretty well with Mrs. Devaney. So, Wayne Partnership, food link, study work. She does the study work program that Mr. DeRozier does. She's part of that program. That's it. Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you elaborate a bit on the career prep trajectory from, obviously.
From like kindergarten,
Yeah,
what they're doing in
just
kindergarten, all the way up through.
Yeah.
So at the elementary level, they're gonna be an introduction to all sorts of careers, all sorts of different things that you can do, because every kindergartner wants to be a fireman or a police person or whatever. So the idea of that there is an end to this, that why we're in school is to get a career, is to get an occupation. That's mostly done at the elementary, not necessarily what you're gonna do, obviously, for the rest of your life. And then there is like an interest inventory or occupational inventory when you get into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We have Zello, we have a whole bunch of different programs where kids will take a survey to figure out what they like to do. And then based on their interests, then they'll spit out some sort of occupation that the kid may wanna look into. Then obviously when you get into high school, we're looking at Regents diplomas, advanced Regents diplomas, whether you wanna go into the military, whether you want a career, or whether you wanna go to college. And that's kind of like the trajectory on how that works. Mostly, we want realistic discussions at the high school. That's one of the areas that we're working on. If a kid wants to do something and maybe they don't have the aptitude or they don't go that route, how do we convince them to do something different? We have like those kind of discussions as well. But mostly, it's pretty low level at the elementary, and then as the kids get up to the high school, it's more precise.
Is there any financial literacy involved as they're
The fast food nights and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so Shayla will have that. I don't actually, it gets later and later because the due date for that seems to continue to get later and later throughout the year. It's usually done in December or January, but she does have a night of like the FAFSA, the financial aid for students.
But
Which
beyond
helps
that,
that.
is there any sort of broader financial literacy education plan?
You know, they all take a class, right, in financial management.
So we added this year a career readiness teacher at the middle school and high school. So her classes at the middle school are really elaborating on that use of Zello that Julia talked about. But at the high school, those 2 classes of career awareness at the high school or high school seminar, she's specifically building in those financial literacy pieces at that level.
Thank you.
Casey Evans is also right now, Casey's working on a piece to bring some of that down to the elementary level.
Perfect. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, that career and financial management class that some kids take. Important. And then there's scholarships.
Sure.
So,
I have a quick question before, I know, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
So, your first slide with the list of our, you don't have to go back to it or anything, it looks like, I just don't wanna waste your time and trying to figure it out.
Test me on that.
50, I mean, it looks approximately 50% of your staff is either brand new to the district, brand new to this type of position. I guess my question is it useful? And I only say that because I imagine that it's gonna be more of the veteran team that has to take that time, that not only to do that incredibly long list under their names, but then to also somewhat counsel these new staff members into this. And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, it looks like we've increased a lot of people here, are we at a good balance, or do you know yet?
I don't really know. I
Okay.
know that if you asked me this in September, I'd be like, we're all overwhelmed, because you're right, kids are coming back, and then I don't know where to put them. Like, I don't know who's doing what necessarily. As time has gone on, I think we're getting more a definition of who goes where.
Okay.
And, yeah, we sort of had like a triage, like which kid goes to who, but yeah, we're sorting that out now.
So it's kind of a fluid thing
Right.
as you, okay.
This is, we haven't just had one new staff member, we had multiple new staff members. And it becomes a negotiation, like what exactly, and how do we use their skill set the best way?
Mm-hmm.
Peaceful schools, for instance, all of us were at kind of a loss of, okay, where exactly do we fit them in? And it took a while, but now I think we've got it. Now we know exactly where they can go, and who they can see, and what benefit they can provide. Yeah, it is tricky.
Thank you.
Yep.
With your talking about the different career paths and such, have you guys thought about at all having or adding discussion in there about civil service? I know in my world it's something that we're realizing people in this world have no idea about a civil service path and what taking a civil service exam looks like and what opportunities it could open up to them just out of college.
I think that's a great idea. I never really thought about that, but we could go through Cuba County or Wayne County for that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's just
Probably
another
should
option.
be. Because I know people are not taking those tests.
Right.
Well, that's what I hear, certain
Yeah.
positions they're not taking the test where they don't have enough people
Yeah.
to offer the test.
And it could help some kids that don't have experience, if you take the exam, it can get you on some lists and
Right.
open up some employment opportunities for you, and then you can just kind of get some experience, work your way up.
Right, and we have enough employees here that have taken tests, so, yeah, that's a good idea.
I have one quick question. For the vendors that are on your list, do they have training through the district or through their employer regarding the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act?
Did they take perfect training in the end? Oh, yes. Were they here on that day?
So they participated in here as well, but
Okay.
they did that as part of their onboarding through Wayne Capital Peaceful Schools.
But you're right,
And-
confidentiality
Mm-hmm.
and that stuff is very important.
So they have it both at the district and with their vendor? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry?
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was done at Peaceful Schools too. Right, okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Before Mrs. Herb sneaks back to her chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Herbst.
Thank you. You're up, Mr. Litterman.
I just wanted to take a moment. The week of October 16th through October 20th is recognized as Board of Education Appreciation Week. And I know that was several weeks ago now, but we had a board meeting scheduled during that week. And we shifted that date kind of late to this date today. So I wanted to publicly recognize in our board meeting the work of our 7 board members. Again, this is a voluntary based job for them. We spend a lot of time together. We had an outstanding school board training several weekends ago. All 7 board members gave up a portion of their Saturday, a large portion of their Saturday, to come in and work together as a group. And I think we really benefited from that time together as a group. So I wanted to just again publicly recognize each of your contributions in sacrificing your time and energy and efforts in the name of benefiting and supporting our school and our students and our community. So you should have received a certificate at your desk this afternoon, and there should be a small tote bag, Red Creek tote bag, with some Red Creek paraphernalia in there as a token of appreciation
Swag.
for your
That was a
time
much
and
better
effort.
word.
Paraphernalia swag.
Thank you,
Swag.
Nancy.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it? You don't
That
have
is-
any like things to put, I'm just kidding.
I do not.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Van Orman. We're gonna move on to, D, the minutes from the October 4th meeting. Can I have a motion, please, Mrs. Kaiser, in a second. Mrs. Decker? Any questions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the financial reports. If it pleases the board, I take a motion for all of them, some of them.
We'll do 1 through 4.
All right, and a second by Mrs. Allen. Motion was by Mrs. Kaiser, I'm sorry. Any questions?
I have one. It's now November, I know it's just the 1st, but would it be crazy to ask for the September financials? Is it normally late? I understand that it's been a Red Creek normally late, but is that going to continue?
I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out for you.
Thank you so
So
much.
you're saying that you're looking for the September financials?
Mhm.
I'm assuming that this is probably a typo, but I think all of our treasurer's reports say attached, please find the report for the month ending in May. Even June and July and August, they all say that, so,
That's prepared over by
yeah.
CDL, I'll ask about that.
I'm assuming that we could accept them and make that correction afterwards.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
point it out so that it could be correct.
Thank you for the catch. Other questions? Okay, when you're ready.
Mrs. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Foltz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman,
Yes.
Mrs. Decker,
Yes.
Mrs. Bliss,
Yes.
Mrs. Allen, and Mrs. Madigan.
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on, after the consent agenda, I would take a motion for all of it unless there's
I have,
an exception.
I have one exception. Mhm.
Would you mind making a
So
motion?
I'll make a motion for the appointments, resignations, and PSC.
Yep.
Except for number, sorry, scrolling,
You're fine.
30.
Okay.
30 on the appointments.
30 on the appointments.
Okay. So F-130. Does anyone else see any exceptions before we keep moving forward? Okay, then can I have a second, please? Mrs. Bliss? Okay, so this would be all of F1 through 4 with the exception of F230. Any questions?
I have one question.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
might just be me not understanding. Under appointments, 10 and 11, we have that appointment retroactive to 10/19, but it said there's still pending fingerprint clearance.
Yeah, that would be a typo. They would not be here without fingerprint clearance.
Okay, so that was my question. How would we work
Nope.
retroactively?
Yeah, we checked this, and I can tell you that we checked this afternoon, and that particular person is still, the fingerprints have not cleared yet, so
So it's not really.
So
going
they have not started.
retroactive?
that is not retroactive.
Okay.
That is correct.
Other questions? Okay, when you're ready.
Mrs. Decker?
Yes.
Mrs. Bliss?
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Foltz? Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, could I have a motion, please, for F2 number 30? Thank you, Mrs. Folds, and a second by Mrs. Kaiser. Questions? Are you ready?
Mrs. Foltz?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman?
No.
Mrs. Bliss?
Yes.
Mrs. Decker? Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, on to new business, G.
I'd like to make a motion, G 1 through 5.
I'd like to save 5 for separate, if that's okay.
I would like to make a motion, 1 through 4.
Thank you. And a second by Mrs. Folds. Any questions about this group? All right.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman?
Yes.
Mrs. Decker?
Yes.
Mrs. Foltz?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Bliss?
Yes.
And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, could I have a motion for G5, please? Thank you, Mrs. Dingman. And a second, Mrs. Kaiser. Any questions? Okay, when you're ready.
Mrs. Bliss?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Foltz?
Yes.
Mrs. Decker?
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Mr. Vernon,
Right, so thank you for that vote. G5, Danielle DiBiase actually is here this evening with us. So I'd like to introduce her, at least in name and face, to the members of the Board of Education. So welcome, Danielle, and congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay. We'll keep moving. Any questions on the administrative reports?
I just have a comment that I really love all of the pictures that you guys are putting on your reports because it makes me feel like I'm part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good comment, Mrs. Becker. Any other questions? Or comments, I guess I should say. Okay, Mr. Van Orman.
I wanted to, as we've been talking over the last several board meetings about a presentation schedule. Obviously, you saw Mrs. Herbst present tonight on the counseling plan, and really just kind of giving you detailed information about the scope and the depth of who's involved with our counseling department. But I wanted to outline for the board the dates that we have set aside for all of our board meetings, and then some scope of the topics that we would present throughout the course of the school year. The administrative team put a lot of work and thought into the timeliness of when some of these things will occur. For instance, when the music department will present on March 6th. March is Music in Our Schools Month, so it's very timely then that we take an opportunity to have our music department come in and provide some updates. Mr. Welcher in the athletic department, we sprinkled him in throughout the course of the year as each of the athletic seasons have kind of come to a conclusion. We tried to also make sure that each building, high school, middle school, and the elementary school, had an opportunity at one time during the course of our meetings to highlight initiatives and programs that are going on in their buildings, as well as, we have Science Olympiad in there, some of our art stuff, some of our art department programs are in there. You'll see in May the seal of civic biliteracy and civic readiness. Those are some distinctions that our graduates can earn throughout the course. We've provided some updates from our instructional coaches. You might remember from some of our board meetings back in June and July, we talked about a plan of using some of those federal funds to put coaches in different positions, MTSS, instructional coaches. So we wanted to make sure that those folks had an opportunity to update you on some of the work. And then you'll see a mid-year data and goals update, of course, midway through the year, and then an end of the year strategic plan update as well, as we kind of closed out the year. So I would welcome thoughts, opinions, feedback. I know you might just be looking at it right now, so it can be a little bit fluid, and of course, we would also respond to anything that might come up throughout the course of the year that is not yet predicted. If there was an acknowledgement or recognition celebration that needed to occur, we would make sure to bring that to the board's attention as well.
I think this is great. I think the admin team did a really great job putting it together.
Agree. I would agree with that too. I would also say that hopefully, I think I'm probably speaking for most of us, if not all of us up here, anytime that you can involve the kids, I think that it's really nice to see them in here, although I'm sure it's not the first place they'd like to be in the evening. By the way, thanks for coming in the back.
Yes.
But it's always, it's a real pleasure to have the kids in here for any reason, so.
I'll pass that along.
Thank you very much.
I also wanted to just kind of, again, bring up the topic of that December 14th capital project vote. I had a meeting last week with the BOCE's PR department to really set aside some dates and timelines on how we will roll some of that information out to the community. So the plan is we will have a district-wide presentation similar to our budget hearing. We would have that presentation. It would be in the auditorium most likely, to provide a detailed scope of some of that work. Well, of course, we're going to work with both our architect firm, which is King & King, and Wayne Finger Lakes BOCE's PR department on some social media posts and website updates that you're going to start to see kicking out as early as next week or so, trying to raise awareness on where we stand with some of those things. King & King is working on some cardboard placards that would go on an easel, so we can put those up at any district-sponsored events that we would have coming up within the buildings. So the folks in our community that would frequent those events would have an opportunity to see, again, that scope of work. We're going to be working on sending a newsletter out to the community that would come around the end of the month, which would again break down the financial aspect of the capital project and the scope of the work, with a description of what we're hoping to accomplish with the capital project. We're going to send we'll plan to send a save the date postcard essentially out to the community into early December. Just as a reminder here, the date for the vote. Again, some messaging from our PR department as we get close. We'll have a number of winter events in December. December, of course, is a busy month for our music department. We have lots of concerts. We also have, of course, indoor sporting events. So taking opportunities to hit those different pockets of the community that would attend those different things as a way to educate them. And then our budget, our capital project vote would take place on December 14th in the same location that our budget vote takes place, which is in the main foyer of our high school entryway. That's the same night as one of our concerts. So we've arranged the times so that folks really should be able to vote either before or after that concert, either on their way in or on their way out. Just, again, being mindful of the hectic lives that all of our community members kind of have. Some of them might be rushing to get in and wouldn't necessarily have time to stop in and vote, but they might be able to do it on the way out. So we're going to try to ramp up that information so that the community is aware. And our PR department will also be working with some of the local news publications as well to help them promote some of that information.
Will it be on our website?
It will.
Okay. On any of our PR information that we have, do you know, or could it be, if we don't, if there might be QR codes or something that could be on that documentation? So if people want to go right to the website and check out all of that fun budget information that goes along, or what might be included in the capital project, you know?
Yeah, that's a concise way to get that
Yeah.
information out. So I like that idea. We'll definitely look into it.
Cool.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Are we planning on adding that vote to our district calendar that's on the website?
Yes. Any other questions related to the publicizing of our capital project?
I have a question about
Sure.
the PR position, but I don't know if you're planning to cover that later.
That might have come up in my conversations with BOCES, and we should have, we are very close. We are very close. So I should be getting an update either this week or next week.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. That is all I have.
Okay. If you go under other business, we put in an item about the charter committees. The email went out kind of late, so if you haven't had a chance to look at it, if you can, I couldn't get the document to attach for some reason and send. So I just pulled out the specific things about each of the committees that we talked about and added in that information. So basically it would fill in the blanks of what the document that Elizabeth kind of pulled out for us last time. I think that if there isn't anybody that's got a strong change to make, we need to, especially for the policy committee, we need to make sure that they're able to continue meeting and doing what the business that needs to be done. I know that we need to get some other policies that need updates on that. So it doesn't necessarily need feedback, but we do need to complete this so that we can kind of keep functioning. So when you have a chance to read through those, we can, update them. They don't need to be voted on. So
I was gonna say, could you refresh my memory on what needs to happen? So you sent this information to us with these few committees that we kind of discussed. So they're gonna go into that form, and what happens with that?
They're just documented,
Okay.
basically. So instead of the assignments that I guess I would say that we did in the beginning of the year,
Mm-hmm.
now we would have a little bit more of a formal documentation. And I don't mean to keep picking on Elizabeth, but when she pulled out that information, it just makes our committees a little bit more
Purposeful?
yes, great word. And then it might also identify whether others need to be added or something comes up and we'd like to make a change or something like that. And if you could see some of my other thoughts in there about goals, if we do end up working through an onboarding process or a handbook, whether it's a goal or not, or we choose to do that, these would be easy documents that we could also implement into those, the process for either of those. So nothing really needs to be done unless somebody wants to make some changes. The charter document is pretty lengthy, but it doesn't really actually have much information to add. It's kind of more of what it is, what your plan is, what your plan for that committee is, how many people you're gonna have on it. That's about it, what the overall aspect of it. The only one that kind of really stuck out, I think for us, was the overall vision for the policy committee, because where do we expect to go with that? So I tried to combine our thoughts into what we felt like needed to be brought back to the board within a timely manner, and then also the idea of the annual review, or in this case would be a 3-year plan. And then also the community relations, because that's not actually one that's established yet. So we don't really have something assigned to that now. But for example, if we were, I don't know, putting together a booster club, maybe that would be something that, I don't see Mr. Welcher looking up, so he's not getting my joke. Yeah, exactly. Maybe that would be an opportunity to assign a board member to, or whatever felt necessary for us to be involved in that. So again, it doesn't need a vote. If you could just take a look at it, and you know, we could discuss obviously at a further date. Otherwise, I think that this would be a good jumping off point to fill in those that paperwork and have somewhere to start.
If we agree to the wording that was put together here for each of those committees, then it'll be transferred into that charter.
Yeah, if I could somehow figure out how to not keep messing it up, it would have been in that one. But Stephanie's gonna laugh because I sent it to her 8 times. So.
I only got it once.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you the one that's completing those?
Yeah, I will, as
Those
long as
charters?
there's, I mean, and it doesn't, that's not set in stone either. So if they go in there and in a month you say, hey, listen, we really need 4 years for a review for the policy book, then we can make that change. But if we're gonna move forward, I think that might be a good way to do it. So
Is
if
this
you,
something we could put, once we have these committees and kind of in place in these charters, that we put them on our website, like under our Board of Education section of like what these
I think that'd
committees
be a
are
great
and what
idea.
they do?
yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so, you know, take a look maybe over the next few days, let me know. The other thing that I wanted to make a point about was that right now we're scheduled for a meeting on Thursday, November 9th, because of recent events that were able to take place this evening. We don't necessarily need that meeting on the 9th.
Next week, November 9th.
Yeah, I'm sorry, November 9th. I'm sorry, are we on? It is November, right?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it snowed.
Right, yeah.
November.
It's awful. I'd like to eliminate that meeting unless someone has something pressing that maybe I forgot about.
So then we would not meet again until December 6th.
That's correct. It would have been later in the month, but then the holiday, so.
I would just say that, in looking at this email, like, so like number 2 with board goals, I don't know if we would wanna wait until December 6th to circle back about the charter committees and about the board goals, as well as anything else that's in this list, I'm not sure. So I'm just throwing that out, I don't know when we would need to talk again about that stuff.
What did we decide, or not decide, that's not the right word. What did we discuss about the next step for us in board goals?
So the last thing was during the retreat with Heather, and it was explained that it was going to be a very, I think maybe
So
you could simplify it.
if you want me to, because I sent the notes out from the retreat late today, like right before the meeting. But I can just, if I can find what I sent. So we had discussed, that the board goals would be separate from the district goals. And basically they could be like the board goals itself could be very simple as far as like we create an onboarding process for new members, possibly a handbook, or the fact that we come up with goals by January 1st or, you know,
So I tried to pick,
August 31st next year.
I'm sorry I didn't get to your email, Stephanie.
No, I didn't think anybody would, maybe I didn't send it until 4:15, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
that, you're refreshing my memory, thank you.
so a lot of that was piggybacking off of our conversation with Heather, and that would also be attainable for being a few months into the school year already.
And keeping in mind that the board goals are separate than the district goals.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Use the 9th as a work session if we wanted to do that, or if that's what it was for. It doesn't necessarily have to be that evening. I guess my point is what it looks like right now is that we don't have business to conduct outside of those things. So
Would it be beneficial to, and I don't know, but would it be beneficial to move it to like the 15th? Like, do we foresee business needing to be done before December 6th, like an actual business, like agenda business?
I don't foresee anything on the immediate horizon in the next couple of weeks. Over, just other than the course of our normal business, the financials, the updates, the hiring and the resignations that are just part of normal operations. I don't, I think the 6th, which is already our scheduled date, I believe falls within our 10-day window for our capital project hearing date. So if we have one of those, that would have to be within the 10 days. So that 6th would fall within the 10 days. So we could do a capital project hearing that night prior to the board meeting. Again, that's not a requirement for the board to be in attendance at, but just, we get public at them, so it might kind of be a 2-for-1.
Great idea.
which is a great idea.
2-for-1.
The 6th.
The 6th.
So
I'd say the 6th.
So the only thing with that too is that we might have a board member that made me aware that we have a K-3 concerts the evening of the 6th.
We do.
So wasn't gonna call you out. That might be something to consider. We really tried to make sure that there wasn't an overlap, so unfortunately we missed it. We could move it up to 6 o'clock if that
Your concert at 7, Mr. Taylor.
would help. I also don't know what preparation for small people is a little more.
Are they doing anything before? Sometimes with holiday concerts, they might have a little, tea and cookies or not tea and cookies, but like something beforehand sometimes.
Not right, not the.
Little Kumbaya celebration.
Tira Pits is looking.
I mean,
like a
move it to
fundraiser
the
piece for that
7th.
night, but I don't know.
So I think Kim's concern though is that if we come back in December and, that's another month before we look back at approving goals.
Do we, does the goals for our internal board goals have to be discussed in public session?
They do.
Okay.
I mean, I guess kind of what we were talking about at the retreat, is there a number that we have to have, like, do we have to have a set number of board goals? I mean, I feel like, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we're all pretty much on board with a goal would be that we should set some sort of onboarding process. Like, would we be okay to say that is a goal that we want? And I feel like that's a hefty goal, but it's necessary. So could we agree that maybe that's our only goal for this year? Because it's super important.
I personally think that makes sense. I think there's a lot of, that can go into that in terms of research with NISBA, and we talked about potential training, and that could take a lot of time, to work through, so that was kind of my thought, if we were to pick kind of a priority, it seems like we were all kind of shifting in that direction, but.
And it's hefty. I mean, it's not something that's going to be quick. There's a lot of moving parts to it and a lot of, like Steph said, researching and probably reaching back out to some NISBA support.
Like we talked about creating a handbook. I don't know if we want that to be a separate goal or just part of the onboarding process goal, but I think that that's something that really, some of that documentation that she brought was so helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I wish that we would have this.
And the handbook could probably go right along with the onboarding process.
Yeah.
We also have the evaluation to discuss as well. Now, again, I don't know if we wanna wait till the 6th to do that, so I'm just throwing that out.
Oh, I'm sorry, the evaluation, is that what you said?
Yeah, I'm looking at all of the bullet points,
Yeah.
in Kate's email. And so it's not just the committees, it's other things too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with keeping the date, keeping next week, but
I'm okay with keeping the 6th, just the
ninth.
6th.
just the sixth.
No, I won't be here on the 9th. But feel free.
Other thoughts?
I mean, I'm not like jumping for joy about having a meeting again next week, but I
I
do,
will probably be late if we keep it.
I do see the value in some things that we really need to finish up, like we really could finish the committee stuff, we really could finish, board goals, we do have to decide on superintendent evaluation.
So Nancy's not going to be able to make it on the 9th, we don't have to meet that night.
Oh, you can go ahead and meet, it's
We
all
can
right.
choose another
We don't
night,
wanna meet
especially if
without
there's not a meeting.
I insist.
So it sounds like maybe just using it as a workshop with no official.
Do you wanna move it to the 15th instead, and then it's on a Wednesday?
I would be better with that.
Could do the 15th, so it's more of a board workshop rather than a board meeting.
Unless there was business to, and we could,
We could add it on.
it would still be to the public, so.
Maybe she
Um,
could do it the 16th instead of the 15th.
That's
Is that a Thursday?
It's a Thursday.
At,
Should you have to print
Or
right
Tuesday.
here from yours,
Um,
sorry.
There's nothing on the district calendar for that day, right?
I don't know.
Conferences are the 20th and the 21st or somewhere around those dates. Friday the 18th, I don't know, I'm just grasping at dates, 17th.
All right. So,
Is a half day.
Or you guys could Zoom me in. I just don't know if I'll be able to make it here in time if we do it that day.
okay.
You're talking on the 15th.
So we'll find-
Tuesday the 14th.
14th, I don't know if I can be available. I don't know if I'm gonna be in town.
If everyone's good with the 15th, we can just do that, and if I don't make it, it's a workshop, so we're not voting on anything, you guys could.
We just need a majority here, so does 15th work better? And we'll see if
You can just keep the 9th then.
we can keep the 9th.
It's already.
Okay. What?
I don't,
Okay, great. We're
So
gonna keep the
move
9th.
we're gonna keep the 9th.
We're gonna move to the 15th, that's fine?
I thought,
Okay,
The 9th is now the 15th.
yes,
So we're
sir.
moving to the 15th.
Yep, that's what we're doing.
At what time?
Yeah, exactly.
At what time?
We'll say 6:30.
Work session.
Yep. If everyone is in relative agreement that some sort of on-board handbook idea would be a good goal for us, I can use the example that Heather gave us and maybe break out tasks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we could maybe get a little bit more accomplished at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. On the 6th, right, of December,
Yes.
Elizabeth, will it help if we move to 6 o'clock? Or do you have hair to braid and?
Yeah, honestly, I'll be probably doing hair and dresses.
So either way, it really doesn't
things of
matter.
that nature, yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we want to move it to 6 anyway, just in case anyone else wanted to attend the concert?
Well, I'm wondering,
I wonder if there's a better date.
yeah,
Instead
mean,
of now that we
because-
don't.
right, I mean, because if you had people that wanted to attend the
Yep.
board meeting, you know what I mean? No, right.
So keeping in mind that we would have to fall within that 10-day window for the capital project hearing,
And when's the hearing again?
the 14th.
You could do it on a Tuesday.
Yes, I would, if we just did it the day before Tuesday.
So the 5th or the 7th, you know, as early as the 5th would apply.
You mean the 12th or the 13th, or you were thinking the 5th or the?
I was thinking, I said as early as December 5th would fall within that range, which is Tuesday.
Fifth,
Sorry.
7th, 12th, or
The
13th.
7th,
Anybody else got a calendar? Is there anything going on that night for the school?
Nope.
Okay, let's say the 5th.
Moving December 6th to December 5th.
6:30. Yep.
6:30.
Yep.
Why, I just struggle with this concept that we have meetings at 6:30.
Maybe because it
This
changes
year.
all the time. Okay.
7 o'clock.
Anything else for tonight? I will take a motion to move into executive for a negotiations matter, please. Mrs. Kaiser, a second by Mrs. Bliss. Thank you very much.